Amen. All right. So we're moving into a new topic of discussion. I guess a new area in our class. And for the remainder of the year, we want to focus on what the theme of our church is, which is next level. For the next 3 months, we're going to talk about what that is. We want to talk about what next level means. How do we get there? How do we stay there? And how can we encourage others to come with us to the next level? And I think that this topic is fitting for us because this class, I feel like that's what we're here for. Our overarching goal has always been, aside from connecting with God and with people, it's progressing. How do I get better? How do I become more efficient in this walk with God? How do I progress in this? And so for us, I believe the next level is figuring out what needs to be done in our lives to make progress in our walk with God. And how do we get better at this thing that Paul calls living as Christ? How do we get better at living as Christ instead of being a Christian is just part of who I am? How do I live as Christ? How can I progress in that? Next level doesn't necessarily mean success. And so I want to clarify that. We're not necessarily talking about success. We're talking about progress.
Right.
Because in my mind, when you talk about succeeding, that means to a certain extent the thing is over. Right? Like when you succeed, when you have a victory, that's done. Well, I don't know about you, but I know I'm not quite there yet, and I'm not done, and there's a lot of work that needs to happen. So for me to succeed, it's going to come when I cross over to that other side. That's when I can say, okay, I've succeeded. Or maybe you get to that point like Paul had in his life. He said, I fought the fight. I finished my course. I was successful. But for us that are still in it and still grinding through it, we are doing our best to progress. Am I getting better? Because this is an ongoing effort, and so bit by bit, I'm going to progress in this. And so what we want to do is zero in on how progressing in the daily matters of life will enhance our overall relationship with the Lord. And so what we'll do, we'll highlight what we may view as carnal things of life, what things that may seem carnal in nature, we're going to look at how they affect us spiritually. Because whether we want to believe it or not, the carnal things of our lives will affect us spiritually.
Right.
I mean, I was thinking this morning way back when we were early on in our marriage, and I was one of those zealous givers. Like when we took an offering, I was ready to give. Like, where's my checkbook at? Okay? And we would still be in debt if Kayla wouldn't have checked me on it. But I can remember, we would have these opportunities to give, and I would be praying, and I'd come to Kayla and be like, babe, I feel like we need to give $1,000. She was like, you better go back and check. Like, you better get him to write you a note or something, because I'm not sure about this.
We don't got that.
Right, because due to circumstances and probably a little bit of immaturity with our finances, we were not in a good position. We were not in that position where we could give generously. We needed to stay afloat. And so my carnal management of my finances was affecting how I wanted to give spiritually.
That's good. So
it all works together.
Right.
We can't be super spiritual and have a wrecked carnal life. They work together. We always talk about the flesh wars against the spirit, which is true, but the flesh also has to complement the spirit, or the spirit's not going to be able to do what it needs to do. So they work together. And so we're going to talk about what the next level looks like for us. What does it look like for you? What does it mean to you? And I think to find that out, it's going to come through a good old self-examination. We gotta somehow look within ourselves. We need to figure out where we are, where we need to go, what needs to be done, or what needs to change for us to get to where we need to go. What's good about me? What needs help? Where is there change needed? What needs to be added? What needs to be taken away? Those are the things we got to start asking ourselves. Start analyzing take a day. Take one day, a snapshot of your life, a single day, and say, okay, from waking to sleeping, what fills my day and what's beneficial and what's not. That alone will help tremendously. But we've got to be willing to objectively look at ourselves, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we got to do it. Imagine if you had the ability to invite someone to watch you for a month, okay? Just to see everything that goes on, and y'all are squirming right now. Just to see what goes on in your life. To take notes about it, and at the end of that month, give you a report of what they think is good and what is bad, right? What's positive and what needs to change. And so we got that person who took the notes, and then taking your own notes about yourself and see if they match up. I've said this several times. God gave us eyes that look out, and they don't look in very good a lot of times. It's easy for me to look at Brian Wallace and be like, boy, man, I tell you what, that Brian Wallace, he could work on this, he could fix that, he could fix that. But for me to be able to look in at myself, you're perfect, you're doing just fine. But for me to look in at myself, that's a different story altogether. So we've got to be able to objectively look at ourselves and honestly say, okay, where do I need to improve? Where can I change? I know where I need improvement, and that's submission to the will of God. I pray the prayer, God, not my will, but thine be done. I pray it every day, sometimes multiple times a day. But I found myself this morning, I said, God, whatever you want me to do today, not what I want, what you want. The thought flashed across my mind, what if God doesn't let you take a nap today? And I honestly started getting nervous, like, I can't hear you right now. Got a bad connection. So, while it's a novel idea and it's a good thing to say, Lord, not my will, but thine be done. I mean, in all honesty, I need to work in that area. Because knowing change, knowing that I need the will of God, Roger, is one thing. But accepting the will of God is quite another. Knowing I need to change something in my life is one thing, but actually making the change is another thing entirely. I want to look at Nehemiah chapter 1, verses 1 through 4. And I picked the New Living Translation, but if you got King James, that'll work just fine. But it says, so the next few scriptures that I'm going to look at are all kind of dealing with the same circumstance in history. So these three all deal with the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem. Okay, they went into Babylonian captivity, and God was giving them an opportunity to come back and rebuild the temple. So keep that in mind when we look at these. It's all the same situation, the rebuilding of Solomon's temple. All right, so Nehemiah 1, 1 through 4. These are the memoirs of Nehemiah, son of Hakaliah, in late autumn, in the month of Kislev, in the 20th year of King Xerxes' reign. I was at the fortress of Susa. Hanani, one of my brothers, came to visit me with some other men who had just arrived from Judah. I asked them about the Jews who had returned there from captivity and about how things were going in Jerusalem. They said to me, things are not going well for those who return to the province of Judah. They are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem has been torn down, and the gates have been destroyed by fire. This is an examination. Nehemiah, he was willing to look at this. He asked the question, how are things going? What's stuff look like? How are my people? What's the situation like? And they told him, they said, it's not good. There a lot of changes need to be made. There needs to be a lot of rebuilding. A lot of people need to be restored. We're in need of some change. So he had this honest examination. And then verse 4 says, when I heard this, I sat down and wept. In fact, for days I mourned, fasted, and prayed to the God of heaven. And then I want to read the first word of verse 5, and it simply says, then. When I heard this, I sat down and wept. In fact, I mourned for days, fasted, prayed to the God of heaven, and then. Progress or next level is what happens then. Is what we do after the examination. That's where progress begins. And so, for us to attain this next level, it first requires us looking within and saying, okay, where are my deficiencies? Where can I improve? What is this superfluous stuff I have in my life right now that doesn't need to really be there? What's helping? What's not helping? What's holding me up? It's those tough questions that we have to be willing to answer. And then we take action. That can be a bit overwhelming in itself. But one thing we need to get a hold of is next level does not mean 20 levels from now.
Right.
It means like the next step. It doesn't mean what's 10 miles down the road, it's what's right in front of you. That's what next level is. And we kind of freak out over these things. We kind of freak out over the results of the self-exam. And we tend to go overboard with changes. Next level is an admirable goal, but sometimes, if we're honest, we look at ourselves and we think, I don't know if next level is going to be enough. I don't know if one minor change is going to do it because I know me and I know exactly where I am. And if I need to get way over here, one small change is not going to be enough. And that, again, can be overwhelming as well. And sometimes it could cause us to quit. There's a wonderful quote that I love. Jordan Peterson, he says, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. Compare yourself to yesterday, not to who you see today succeeding and doing well. Are you better than what you were yesterday? That's something important to know. Did I improve from yesterday to today? And if we can say yes to that, if we're a bit better than what we were yesterday, then we're progressing. It doesn't matter the degree of improvement. It just means if you were doing a little better than you did yesterday, you're moving in the right direction, and that's what matters. It's progress. And progress must be sustainable. And typically huge changes are not sustainable. How many diets have failed? How many workout plans have failed? How many attempts at growing your prayer life has failed because we try to make this big leap that's not sustainable. How many of us have decided, you know what, I'm going to start working out, and day one you go do some squats, and then you got to take a week off because you're so sore. It happens. We do it. Kayla gets on me all the time because like I'll be recovering from an injury, and I'll go back and I'll hit it hard, and then I got to take so much more time off because I didn't allow myself a small change because I can handle a big change.
So you thought.
We're impatient, and that's where the problem is. We want to be fixed.
Right.
And we're not willing. It's like, okay, I don't know what the goal is, but typically what we do is we try to swallow too much change in an attempt to attain some far goal, and then we get discouraged because it didn't work out the first time we tried. So Pastor has taught this. I've heard him teach it a few times, but it's the small degrees of change that really will bring us to our destination or our goal. So I think he calls it the 2% change rule. It probably has a better name than that, but so here's our goal, right? And so here we are. And so what we want to do is we want the shortest path between, what's that rule? Like the shortest distance between, or
2 points is a straight line.
say it again.
The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line.
Yeah, we want that. Yeah, we want that. So that doesn't happen, right? So the change has to happen in increments. I knew I should have brought like a straight edge or something, but so it's the little changes that we make over time that help us. We don't go try to pray an hour. We don't go fast. I'm doing this wrong.
You're doing fine.
Am I?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe, I don't know.
We understand.
Yeah, y'all get it.
Yeah, it's
Something,
got you.
it's something like that.
It's beautiful. That's
It's
good.
supposed to be a curve.
No, that's what I meant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's the small changes that gradually build up. You don't go try to run a marathon, right? You start out with 400 meters and see if you can tackle that. And then once you get that, you can build on, and build on until eventually you're where you need to be. But it's making the sustainable changes that truly matter, the small changes that make a big difference. Going back to Nehemiah, he was told the condition of Jerusalem was bad, and so he went about making changes. But the rebuilding of a temple, the rebuilding of a city is no easy task. That's a lot of work. I mean, I can imagine getting overwhelmed with that very quickly. And so Nehemiah has this plan, and there's other leaders on board with him, but the people really struggled at this. They looked at the enormity of the task. I mean, imagine, guys, we're going to rebuild this city. We're going to rebuild this temple. How many of you ever rebuilt a temple? We need your help. I can imagine, like, that was a scary moment for them. And the thoughts going through their minds, and I'm sure it would be mine too, is like, I can't do that. I don't know how. That's a lot, and that takes a lot of knowledge, a lot of effort. That takes some skill sets that I don't have right now. And so I could imagine just stepping back from that and being like, look, yeah, I don't think I can do that. It's not even worth trying. But something wonderful happens in looking at Haggai 1 and 8. I think like God sensed their issue with the enormity of the task, and he tells them, go up to the mountain and bring wood and build the house, and I will take pleasure in it, and I will be glorified, saith the Lord. He just told them to go gather up some wood. Just go get started and go do something. Go make an effort, and I'll bless it. You worry about step 1 and let me worry about step 200. We'll just get moving in the right direction, and that is what is going to matter. That's what matters. And we have to be convinced that even the smallest bit of progress matters. Zechariah 4:10, do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work begin. God said, I am glorified when you make these small improvements. If all you can do is gather wood, if all you can do is make a small, consistent change that's going to bring God glory, that's going to allow him to begin to work and move through you, just the small things. And so don't worry about the end goal so much as worry about what can I do today that I'll be able to do consistently, and that's what's going to make the difference. Next level also means we need to do it together. We go together. We're in this together. It's one thing for me to take on the task of self-improvement, but if I know my wife Kayla is also attempting the same thing, that makes it a whole lot easier for me, because we're in it together and we're working together towards a common goal. And if I know that this whole Connect class is committed to progress or attaining the next level, well, I sure don't want to be left behind. If everybody in here is pushing towards pushing towards progress and greatness, I don't want to be the one lagging behind. I don't want to be that anchor dragging behind. What was that?
Drag the leg behind you.
Yeah, it's Patty sent my wife a meme the other day, and it was a comic, and Jesus had his hand around a child, his child, and he said, when you only saw one footprint one set of footprints in the sand, that was me carrying you. But you see that groove back there? That was where I drug you. So if all you guys are progressing and doing awesome, I don't want to be the dead weight behind you. So that's going to encourage me to get involved. And so when we do it together, it's so much more effective. You wonder why we have the church services we do. Is because we're in one mind and one accord, and we're all ready to have a move of God, and so it happens. That's why you wonder why you go home and pray by yourself and don't feel what you feel in the church. It's because it's so much more powerful when you have a group. That's just the way things work. And so we go together and we get involved, and we realize that you affect me and I affect you. What you decide to take on is going to affect me. What I decide to do is going to affect you. What I decide to neglect not only affects me, it affects everyone. And so realizing that we affect one another is a powerful thing. We can affect people for the good, or we can affect people for the bad. Paul and Silas, they were praying in prison. They're in shackles, they're in stocks, and they started praising the Lord, right? Not only were their chains loose, but everybody's chains were loose, because what they were doing was not only affecting them, it affected the whole. And so we're in this together. And if you read through Paul's epistles, if you read through Romans through, I can't remember the last one, all 13 of Paul's epistles, he deals with the individual, but he also deals with the body. There's some stuff you do individually, but there's also some stuff you do collectively that is just important. And Ephesians 4, 2 through 4 and 16 highlight these things. He says, always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. Always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other. Make allowance for each other's faults because of your love. And so, if we're going to attain this next level, it's going to require us being patient one with another, make allowance for each other's faults, because we don't all think the same way and we don't all act the same way, and that's a good thing. But it's not holding someone, it's not judging someone guilty because you don't like the way they did a certain thing. It's making allowance. Right. We all have a degree of humanity about us. And I'm going to walk into church one day after having a bad day. And, I might not be as kind as I need to. And I would hope that maybe you would have mercy on me and make an allowance for that day. That's not the rule. And we try to be pleasant, but sometimes the truth is we just have bad days. Instead of thinking, Sister Carla, she don't like nobody. Look at her. She's just sitting up in the riser. She don't want to talk to nobody. AKA Sister Kayla. But it's so easy to do that, It's so easy to do that. We look at people and something that they did or a way they acted, and we attribute that to who they are as a whole. Yeah. Well, they're just a bad person. They cut me off in traffic. They're probably a Nazi or something. People are the worst. And so, realizing that people are going to make mistakes and people are going to have bad days, and understanding that and being patient and making allowance for them is going to help us all grow. So we need to nail that down and get good at that. Verse 3, make every effort to keep yourselves united in the Spirit, binding yourselves together with peace. For there is one body and one Spirit, just as you have been called to one glorious hope for the future. Make every effort to keep yourselves united. We are not islands unto ourselves. Paul said to do everything you can to stay bound together with your neighbor. And so For some of us, that goes against the grain. I don't know about you guys, but what that looks like for me and my wife, up to just a few years ago, we had no problem being isolated. We were fine. Like we didn't hang out a lot. We just kind of kept to ourselves, kept quiet, kept separated. We were consumed with youth ministry, and that was it. We were good with that. But we realized that's not sustainable at all, because I can't make it on my own, and she can't. I mean, we're together, but my goodness, we need some help, and we need one another. And so I thank God for the friendships we have today, because it has been so eye-opening as to what we were missing all those years. We need one another. You need someone that you can go to and confide in and seek help from. I mean, it's a very, very powerful thing, and Paul saw the importance of it. He said, make every effort to keep yourselves united. When you're going through something, go just, you don't have to, lay it all out for your friend, but just go and be around them and be edified by them, and that'll help more than you can imagine. It's important. Verse 16, Christ makes the whole body fit together perfectly as each part does its own special work. It helps the other parts grow so that the whole body is healthy and growing and full of love. So progress will require us as individuals recognize our importance to the whole. We've got to realize that our successes as well as our shortcomings will affect those around us, because that body, it fits perfectly together. Each part does its own special work. We have to realize that we're all a part of this, and we're all important. It's asking ourselves the question, how is my condition, my actions, my faith, my walk affecting those around me? Is what I do and how I portray myself positive, or is it not so positive? And as we grow, our growth is going to encourage the growth in others. Growth requires each of us realizing that we as individuals have a role to play and a contribution to make. We all know it to be true. We all believe that every part of the body is important. We say it out loud and we proclaim it, but when we think of ourselves and we think, well, but I don't play a real big role in this. We've got to stop telling ourselves that. We've got to start realizing that your role and my role and each of our roles is just as important as the other. May not be as visible, but it's just as important. You think about the people who work behind the scenes at this church, who never get seen and never get heard. I was thinking the other night, we talked about it with the Lanes. What would happen if they just didn't show up? Watch the church fall apart. Everybody plays a role, and it's important. And if I'm not holding up my part of the body, that means another part of the body is suffering. And if you don't hold up your part of the body, you're causing someone else to take up your slack. You're like that. We're having to drag you along because we don't want to leave you behind. And so we're all important. We all have a role to play and a contribution to make. We're trying to go to the next level. Not 20 levels from here, not 30 levels from here. What's next? How can I improve? What small change can I improve? And what I'm realizing is there is encouragement everywhere you look. This next level thing is encouraged everywhere you look. I had finished with prayer this morning. I walked by the coffee maker. My wife bought a big bag of chocolates for whatever reason. I'm telling you, I feel like I talk about this every week. And
It's for the kids, but he takes it personally.
She bought it's a big bowl of chocolates, and I glanced over. Does anybody like Three Musketeers? Three Musketeers, they're trying to get you to the next level. Way to go. Three Musketeers. Way to go. You ready, Mariah? Here. Nice job. This is going bad. I appreciate you. You're unstoppable. I don't know, like, if you eat more, you get better. I don't know how it works.
Your unstoppable is questionable. You got a bag of chocolate.
Oh my God, that tickled me so much. I was like, what are you really trying to do? Who are you trying to fool here? Eat another one. I'll encourage you even better next time. Huh.
They use those in the schools.
They did?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, teachers eat that up.
Oh.
How they eat it up?
Literally.
Who was it that said life is like a bag of chocolate?
I don't know.
I don't either, that's why I asked.
Think about
it. There's more people for us than against us, even Three Musketeers. But when I think about this topic, and I'm excited about what we're going to be diving into over the next few months, when I think of next level, the idea of efficiency was at the forefront of my thought process. Being efficient. And when I used to run, and I know we have runners in here, so but when I used to run semi-long distances, I would literally think of myself as a Honda Civic. I was like, okay, Jake, you got to be a Honda Civic. You can't be a F-350 diesel. You have to be a Honda Civic. You have to be a super efficient, streamlined. You don't have a high fuel economy. You are getting the most miles per gallon as you can out of yourself. So how can I swing my arms just right? What's the right height to pull my feet off the ground? What's my stride need to look like to make myself the most efficient? Because I don't want to be clomping down the road like a big diesel truck. I want to be smooth. If you want to get even better, get that Toyota Corolla, huh? So efficiency. How efficient can I be concerning the things of God? So let's simplify it a little bit. How can we be efficient? We don't have access to our past, right? We've talked about this. The past is gone. You can't affect your past anymore. There's no use trying. Jesus said, take no thought for tomorrow, for the cares of tomorrow will take care of themselves. So what does that leave us with? The eternal now, today. It's always now. It's always the present. So how can I be most efficient with this one day, which I will say the Lord made this day, so it's got to be good. How can I be efficient with this one day that I have? What needs to happen? Where can I go? What can go? What can stay? What will be beneficial? What's going to be a setback? How can I be efficient today? My goal is not to take the importance off the big picture, but we need to recognize that the day-to-day small things is going to promote good decisions when it comes to the big picture items. The big picture it's going to be there. What happens 5 and 10 years from now, that's important stuff. But the truth is, the only thing we have is now. So what small changes can I make now so that I'll be successful when it comes time for the big picture stuff? And I think if we can master the small things, we'll have victory in the great things. That's how we get to the next level.